What is up, everyone? Welcome back to Base Damage. Hope you're all doing fabulous today. And today we're going to be taking a look at some more quintessential quintuplets, this time focusing on Miku, the fabulous headphone-wearing girl. So with the release of the movie set, there was a couple new combos and everything that focused on a very old but hopefully interesting gimmick. The gimmick itself having been around for a while. To give an example, we're going to look at the level 1 here, where it says, when it's placed on stage from hand, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an event or a quints character, you may put it face up underneath this card as a marker. As such, all the combos in this deck focus on getting markers under characters and gaining advantage based off of the number of markers on underneath the characters on your field. So when I heard about that, the marker gimmick has been around since like all the way back to like Kill la Kill when I first started getting into the game and everything. Probably before that as well. That's just the furthest back that I can recollect in terms of that. So it's been around for a hot minute, but I've never really seen a deck like focused like that's what the combos are based off of. I know there's been lots of other cards that kind of gain advantages and or indirect advantages, like take Gurren Lagann, being able to do the combine, you get multiple markers, which is a nice little bit of compression. You get, say, the level 3 Rem, I was about to say Ram, Rem from ReZero. Every time it gets a marker, it gets a buff, stuff like that. So I taking back on those previous cards and experiences, I was like, maybe it'll be interesting. So I was simultaneously impressed and slightly disappointed by this one. So let's get right into the deck build itself, and I'll kind of explain along the way. So to start it off, shout outs to William Tang. We have this 3/2 9k Devoted Feelings Miku Nakano. If you have 4 or more quints on the field, it gets minus a level in hand, gets 2k power during your turn, as long as all of your characters are quints. And when it's placed on stage from hand, you can heal the top card of your clock to your waiting room. So this one could be bumped up to 4 copies if you don't want to run the level 3 from the trial deck here, because this one is kind of expensive, but it's not really going to make a difference in my overall judgment of the deck. Next is this 3/2 9k Reading on a Bench Miku. Your waiting room has 2 or less climaxes. This gets minus 1 level in your hand. If all of your characters have Miku, this gets 2k power, just constant, so it's constantly an 11. When this is placed on stage from hand, choose up to one of your opponent's characters, return it to their hand, choose one of your characters with Miku in its card name. If there are no markers underneath that character, choose up to one character with Miku in its card name in your waiting room and put it face up underneath that card as a marker. So there are other ways to put markers underneath cards, even outside of their own effects. And the being able to bounce back effect is kind of nice, because it says just choose a character, meaning you can bounce like a back row assist or something, assuming that they don't have hexproof on that character. So then we have 2 copies of Headphone Girl Miku. It's a 3/2 10k. On play, you can search your deck for quints and add it to your hand. When this card attacks, you can pay 2 and pitch 1. If you do, put the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck into their waiting room. Deal X damage to your opponent, and this card gets 1,000 power until end of turn. X is equal to the number of climaxes milled amongst those 4 cards. So definitely a staple amongst a lot of quints decks in general. This is just a good card overall, but it does have a little bit of a price tag last I checked. So you can drop this altogether if you want to bump up your copies of either of these first 2 level 3s. Next, we have the level 3 climax combo of the deck, the 3/2 10k, What She Wants to Do Miku. When this is placed on stage from hand or by the act effect of a particular level 0 Harbored Feelings Miku, you may put the top card of your clock into your waiting room. A little bit more healing. And it has the effect of when this card attacks, if Not Holding Back, which is a pants trigger, is in your climax area and you have 2 or more other quints, you can pay 1 stock. If you do, perform the following action. Put the bottom 4 cards of your opponent's deck into their waiting room, and if there's a climax amongst those cards, deal 1 X times to your opponent. If the total number of markers to your underneath your characters is 2 or less, you just do it 1 time. If you have 3 or more markers, you do the burn 1 twice. So really nice. But like I said, we're gonna get further into this. Luckily, it doesn't have to reverse, which is going to be very beneficial for it. It does not put markers underneath itself. The level 0 that can summon it puts markers underneath it, so that is another thing entirely. So that's it for the level 3s. We get to the level 2s now. This 2/1 7k. How do you really feel, Miku? When this is placed on stage from hand, this gets 1,000 power times the number of Quince characters you have. So a full field would result in her gaining plus 5,000, making her a 12k. And on attack, you can discard a pants trigger, and we know pants triggers love to get clogged up into the hand. If you do, this gets 1,500 power and the following ability until end of turn. When the card's battle opponent becomes reversed, you can search your deck for a Quince and add it to your hand. So pretty nice in that regard. The fact that it goes to a 12k by its own effect, and then a 13.5 by pitching extra pants triggers is kind of nice. Now, the only thing is I couldn't figure out if I wanted more copies of this in the deck versus more copies of this next level 2 in the deck. Operation Substitute Miku. It's a 2/1/4K. On stage, it gets ribbon. Best trait in the game, apparently. When this card attacks, it gets X power until end of turn. X is equal to the number of your characters your opponent has times 2,000. Now, being more reliant on your own Quince on your field is a little bit better of a power-up, but this does get bigger in the long run. With a full field of if your opponent had a full field, that gives it plus 10k, making it a 14, which just in general is bigger than having to use both effects of this. It just gets bigger overall. And lastly, it has a Quince character from hand to waiting room encore, so being able to just, pitch one and save it's kind of nice. Whereas this one, it does lose all the power. It's much better utility. Let's go ahead and admit that right now. This is the better utility card of the two, being able to search your deck and get a Quince, whatever. You're going to have, I'm certain you're going to have pants triggers in your hand, so it's not going to be an issue to pay the cost in any shape, form, or fashion. It does get just about as big. Well, actually, so it's like 500 different. So they're basically tit for tat on that, but this has a bit more advantage. This just has no survivability whatsoever. It drops all the way back down to a 7k, and there is a downside with the other marker cards in the set where the attack buff cards, let's see, it was this one and this one. They give a buff to characters with markers underneath. So sadly, they don't buff either of these cards unless you do the level 3's effect. Or the other level 0. There's another level 0 that gives markers. So I kind of wanted to show both of these where you yourself, if you wanted to bump up this one or if you wanted to bump up this one, you could choose what playset you want to have, or if you wanted to do a split like this one. I just kind of wanted to show the options more than anything. I tested both, and it's kind of tit for tat, to be real. Continue on the level 2s, we have 2 backups in the deck. I felt both of these were very useful. First off, we have an anti-change. It's a 2,500 backup. When you use this card's backup, you can pay 2 and sack a character from your stage to the waiting room. If you do, choose one of your opponent's characters with a level higher than their level and put it into their waiting room. So we have more anti-change hate in here coming up in a second. But we also have Coincidental Encounter Miku, which is another backup. It's a 3k backup, though. And when you use the backup, choose one of your characters in battle, and it gets the following ability until end of turn. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, put that character into your opponent's memory. This is just a good staple backup in general. And then the other anti-change backup comes in the form of this level 1. I just want to go ahead and state really quick. We have Love's Vexations Miku. It's a 1/1/4k. If the level of the battle opponent is higher than the opponent's level, you can put that character on the bottom of your opponent's deck. This kind of just filled some space for the deck for me, but this is very good in today's current climate of Alice plus standby. So yeah, that is it for those, and like I said, just kind of want to showcase that with talking about the anti-change hate. Continuing along the level 1s though, this is another Trodek card, New Student Miku. It's a 1/0/4k. I felt this really needed to be in here to have a bit more defensive utility. If you have 2 or more Quince characters, this gets 2k power, making it a 6k, and it has character encore as well. It's a bit more of a beefy body than this next one, but this is still a good card overall. This is the level 1 climax combo of the deck, and like I stated before, it gets counters. On play, you top check the top card of your deck. If it's a Quince, you can put it face up underneath this card as a marker, and it's completely totally optional, so that's kind of cool. So when the other pants trigger, Dreams to Achieve, is placed in your climax area, if this card is in your center stage, you may choose a level X or lower Quince in your waiting room, return it to your hand. X is equal to the total number of markers underneath all of your characters. So you get to get stuff back, you don't have to attack or anything. I will give that a little bit of an advantage. You do not have to attack It's just on play. So if you have 3 of these on field and each of them have a marker, you can salvage back 3 level 3 or lowers just immediately. And it's very nice if you can do that right before a refresh. Also, it has one last one last effect. When this card attacks, if there's a marker underneath this card, it gets 3k power till end of turn. And you kind of need that because the stat line is a 4k. It's a 104k. So if you're able to get a little bit of buffs from, like, say, the Pants Trigger and the other level 0s that give buffs to characters with markers, you can make this like 6k before attack, and then it becomes a 9k. But then once again, it goes down very, like, weak defensively. It's only going to, like, at max, really going to be a 5k on your opponent's turn with the other 2 buffs that you can put on in the back row. So this kind of, like, adds to the issue that I have with a lot of the Quint's cards. Say for, I'm going to say 2 particular level 1 climax combos. All the other climax combos in the set really seem to have that effect of, you know, very powerful offensively, but very weak defensively. So that's once again a continuing gripe, but we're going to continue right along. However, that is the last of the level 1s. And we're going to get into the level 0s. This first one is one of the first of buffing effects I mentioned before. This is the Harbored Feelings Miku. All of your other Quint's characters with markers get plus 500 power. So it is global, kind of nice. If it has 2 act abilities. Pay 1, pitch a card from hand face up underneath this as a marker, and rest this card. If there are 2 or less markers underneath this card, choose 1 character in your waiting room, return it to your hand. So you do get to replace some stuff, and you get to put markers underneath it. You get to choose what the markers are going to be from your hand. So just like, oh, I have extra level 0s or something, you can just kind of toss them underneath them. But then it has an act. If your level is 3 or higher, you can pay 1 and rest this card. You get to choose one of the level 3s, choose one what she wants to do Miku marker underneath this as a and put it on any position of your stage. Then put this card and all the markers underneath this card face up underneath that level 3 Miku in any order. So the goal is to use its salvaging effect. Put a copy of this underneath it, and then at least one other card, because it says if there are 2 or less markers underneath this card. So as long as you can get at least this particular level 3 under there, that's really nice. Because this effect is the only natural way that the level 3 here would get markers. You do have to pay stock. You do have to send cards from hand. So as long as you can keep that on the field and your opponent doesn't like spin them back to the hand or anything, you're good. And I will get to that in a second as well, because obviously if, you know, a character gets bounced back to your hand, yeah, they lose the markers, and you can't encore them back with the markers or anything. So that is kind of a downside. But so you can do that, and like I said, the general buff is pretty good, and being able to try to summon this out with the level 0 gives it the markers to count for its climax combo. So that can be beneficial in that regard. So then we have Confession Miku, which is 3 copies of this as well. When this is placed on stage from your hand, choose one of your characters with Miku in its card name. If there are no markers underneath that character, choose up to 1 character with Miku in its card name in your waiting room and put it face up underneath that character as a marker. So this is one of the other cards that lets you just put markers underneath characters, so there you go. It also has an act. You can put 1 card from your hand into the waiting room and then sack this card. Choose a character with Miku in its card name in your waiting room, return it to your hand. Maybe try to get back your level 1s to be able to get your combos off and everything. So we have another card from the trial deck. The third of the quintuplets Miku is if you have 2 or more other quints, it gains 1,000 power, making it a 3k. And when this card is placed on stage from hand, you can pay 1, pitch 1, search your deck for a quint. So typically you're going to be trying to play this to go ahead and get your level 1 set up. Then we have Quintuplicate Trails Miku. It's a 002k. If all of your other quintuplets with markers get 500 power. And a Brainstorm. Pay 1, rest this card, mill 4 for each climax with a Pants Trigger icon. Choose up to 1 character in your waiting room, return it to your hand. So being able to salvage and whatnot is kind of cool. And honestly, being able to mill off of this is really good because you get more cards into your waiting room for grabbing back with the climax combo of the level 1. So Lastly, 4 copies of A Self She Could Like Miku, the 001K. If there's a marker underneath this card, she gets 2500 power and the following ability. When this card's battle opponent becomes reversed, choose a quintuplets character in your waiting room, return it to your hand, then choose 1 card in your hand and put it into your waiting room. This is mandatory. If you don't add something back, you still have to discard. So, fun. When this is placed on stage from hand, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's an event or quints, you can put it face up underneath this card as a marker. And I know there was some events that help you get markers as well, but I'm not worrying with those. It's just the deck, it doesn't help the deck, I'll be real. And not holding back, I chose to use the alternate arts for both of these because they looked better. Honestly, this looks really cute. We have the not holding back pants trigger and the dreams to achieve pants trigger as well. Oh, this is the triple rare, not the overframe rare. So yeah, I just figured to choose both the alternate arts for it because they look way fucking better than having Futaro's ugly mug. Anyway, that is going to be it for the deck. Like I said, this didn't really impress me that much. It because your characters don't keep the markers if you encore them back. That's just a generalized rule of how encore and everything works, because the character does go to the waiting room first, then you bring them back. So the character doesn't keep the markers. No matter what your opponent tries to do, if your opponent's like, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and pay the cost and encore this back immediately. No, they don't. You do not keep the markers from that. So don't let your opponent try to fool you on that. And if they have, wag a stern finger at them. But it really doesn't keep the power up for the most part. You really can't keep these alive. So, I mean, it's better to maybe play 1 or 2 at a time and then try to cycle back more copies of them. But you're also wanting, you could cycle them, but you want to be able to grab other cards to set up. You want to grab your level 2s. You want to grab your level 3s to be able to set up your combos for later and be able to get those cards. And yes, you could even do a roundabout way, and I did this, of use this effect, put the level 3, maybe put the level 3 underneath, grab at the level 1, maybe grab with the level 1 combo more copies of the level 3 or the healer, whatever. You got a couple ways you can go about it, but it really does. This really didn't impress me that much in terms of a deck that I would recommend. If she is your waifu and you want to build the deck, by all means, go for it. There's a couple things you can change around, like I showed as we were going through the cards and everything. But for the most part, I really can't say, hey, you should build this. No. That's just me. I do love Miku. She is a really awesome character. But the marker gimmick just really doesn't work for her. If I were to recommend a Miku deck, I would say go back to my other video, and maybe you could still take cards from the movie set to upgrade that. But I wanted to showcase what the new set offered, and it really didn't. It really didn't deliver. That's just me. But regardless, I still had a little bit of fun playing the deck, and when I wasn't, trying to scramble to see do I have the markers? Do I have enough for all this stuff? So, yeah, with that, we're going to be signing off for now. Thank y'all very much for watching. It is greatly appreciated. Please feel free to like and subscribe. If not, hey, it's all good. Do feel free also to join our Discord. Link will be in the description. And we'll see y'all on the flip side. Peace out for now.